Hey everybody, we're back again with Distorted Thinking. And if you've watched the previous videos, you're aware of the fact that I am going off script a little bit and occasionally adding in ones that I think are ones that I've seen in sessions. They're ones that I've seen kind of stated by either myself or in anecdotal situations. And I feel like they're just as important as those ones mentioned previously. Today I want to talk about the idea of I can never do enough. When I say I can never do enough, what does that bring up for people? Post it in chat. What do you guys think of when I say I can never do enough? What do you think about when we say I can never do enough? Why even try? School? Fair. I can never do enough to justify my annoying existence. Sense of responsibility. Yeah. So I think King Artemis comes in really close. I think all of them are good, though. I feel like I can't do enough physically or mentally for my family and friends. I'm not enough for me. Yeah. So notice where people go with this. It's the idea. It's the idea. Tattling, we've got that covered. Thank you. We're working on another segment right now. We'll get to that in a bit. So when I think of this idea, I can never do enough, what it brings up for me is almost immediate bodily exhaustion. One big part of one of the therapies I'm trained in, which is Gestalt therapy, is the idea that our bodily sensations actually lead to some of our awarenesses about emotions. And one of the things that I think is really important about that, to recognize that, is when we're talking about this, the idea that I can never do enough always seems to lead to the same conclusion. There's an inherent belief in there that there's an amount you must do. Now, we can talk about this for a couple different reasons. Look at the gig economy, the idea that people have to work all the time. You've seen this on Twitter, right? People who fetishize the amount of work and how much lack of sleep they've gotten. Not to mention the sort of Protestant work ethic, the idea that if you're not working, you're somehow sinful, bad, or whatnot. But think about that, actually, if you break it down. It essentially tells you that your goodness, grind culture, exactly. It tells you that your goodness, your ability to be worthwhile as a human being, is by its nature connected to what you must do rather than who you are. Do you see that distinction? What you do rather than who you are. Right? So, Zena, did you have some thoughts on this before I continue?
No, we're on the same track.
Cool. So, when I say this, the thing you have to understand is that it's connected to a sense of self-worth. Right? The people who fetishize grind culture do so with the intention of pushing for some sort of attainment, right? Some sort of gain. That is, if you just work hard enough, if you just do enough, if you just love someone hard enough, you'll be rewarded. In some ways, or just in and of itself, it's a reward, right? There's the fetishization part. But this also can lead to the heavens reward fallacy, which we covered below. Links probably around here somewhere. So when we're talking about distorted thinking, we have to look at where these lead. This is something people don't do very often. They don't say they're distorted thinking out loud and start breaking it down into what it actually is saying. Instead, what it does is they say it, and then they say it, and then they say it, and then they say it, and they keep reifying this story within. This is true of all the distorted thinking. You just keep saying it again and again, which just grinds in the pattern and the programming again and again. But here's the thing. What that connects to then is the way in which no matter what you do, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you give to charity, no matter how much you push, you will never be good enough. That's the belief. There's a really good example of this in Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He talks about the idea between his name's Dave Mustaine. If I get this wrong, tell me. But it's the lead singer and creator of Megadeth. But essentially, they talk about how this guy was part of a band. The band was kind of, they were all right. And they were doing good. And then all of a sudden, he was kicked out of the band. And right after that, the band got big. That band's name was Metallica. Thanagor, we're talking about I can never do enough. That's the distorted thinking we're on. I can never do enough. Make sense? So, what Dave did when he was kicked the shit out of Metallica is create his own band, Megadeth. They've made millions. They've sold tons of albums. They were fucking great. But they never got as big as Metallica. Now, because Dave set his sights on beating Metallica, the people that had kicked him out, he viewed himself as a failure. Think about that. This man who sold millions of records, who made well-known songs in the heavy metal community, will never be good enough. This man's probably had slept with tons of girls, probably lived the rock star lifestyle, and all under this belief that he failed. Because he set his expectation, the goal, the standard that he was running towards, to be one by which he could never attain. Metallica was a once-in-a-fucking-dream kind of band. They came out just at the right point in the 80s, just when there was still enough tension left over about the wars that had happened previously. I mean, if you ever listen to the album And Justice for All, like, they hit some kind of cultural note really, really well. There's no way he could beat that. And because of it, because he set his sights that way, he could never be enough. And I like this story because what it does is it tells you something. One, so self-worth partially comes from where are you setting your sights? What are your standards? What are you moving towards? But it also comes from the idea that to some degree, if those standards have been given to you by either a culture, your family, or other people, and you can't meet those standards, imagine that for a minute. You suddenly become less than human, worthless. Because you believe that your humanity, your sense of worth as a being, is directly connected to the way in which you do things. If I just finish graduate school with a 4.0, mom will love me. If I just do enough chores, my partner will love me, or I'll be able to finally rest, right? This is a hard one. This is a really hard one, because in a lot of cases, this shit fucks with people. Kind of, Tiamat. So, like, an inferiority complex is the perception that you are somehow lesser than everyone else around you, and often this is then compensated with a superiority complex. We'll get to a conversation around that a bit later. But the thing here is that when we're talking about this, what it comes to is that there's an assumption, there's a part of that distorted thinking that's really apparent, but only the people on the outside. The fact of the matter is this. This goes to all of you out there. I don't care how much you work. I don't care if you're doing a 40-hour. I don't care if you're doing 60-hour. I don't care if you're not working because you're disabled. I don't care if you are underage and thus can't work excessively. I'll be really clear. I don't care if you're doing all A's in school. I don't care if you're doing like fucking zeros. I would like you to do better. I believe in you. But the reality is this. Your worth is never in question. This is the flaw of distorted thinking, because it attaches things to strange types of morality. Because think about it. If I can't do enough, that makes me worthless. So there's an assumption there that your worth is gained. It's conditional. There's almost a moral judgment there. Well, because you didn't do enough, you're bad now. Right? If I just get this job, I'll be happy. And like Ryan said in YouTube chat, yeah, of course. You can absolutely love working. That doesn't make you a bad person. But it doesn't make you a good person either. Now, let me put my little socialist hat on for a minute. This is capitalism in a nutshell, folks. The Protestant work ethic is essentially a system by which to control people. Now, do I think it was created that way intentionally? Fuck if I know. I'm bad at history. But the fact of the matter is that the idea there does lead to a way by which to create power. This is critical thinking 101, or critical theory 101. Essentially, by telling people that there will be a reward, using the heavens reward fallacy, or that their worth is connected to their level of productivity, you essentially make them look inside rather than look out and see why the system is permanently fucked. Let's think about this, for example. If you think about, say, the Republican Party, they talk about this whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps nonsense, which is silly in and of itself. But the fact of the matter is that if you're really looking at that idea, essentially what it says is, if you just work hard enough, you'll succeed. But we know for a fact that's a lie. Wealth doesn't really change all that much in this country. If you're born poor, likely is you're going to probably die poor. And so the idea is they sell this narrative because they want to create this idea of personal responsibility. And I'll be clear here. Personal responsibility is not bad. It's fucking good. It's actually something the left needs to work on more because we kind of suck at it. We avoid it because we know that's the rights domain, and we should have never ceded that territory to them in the first place. That philosophical territory should be fucking yanked back. Personal responsibility is a big deal, a huge deal. Every one of those people out there that are abusing people online because they feel like they can just yell and freak out at random fucking content creators, guess what? Exactly that. So here's the thing. In a lot of ways, you have to understand very, very clearly something that is here. There are ways in which you are personally responsible for your circumstances, and there are ways in which you are not. Your choices are yours, but that doesn't mean your choices don't have context to them. Yeah, right? Tiamat is originally a way of saying something was impossible. Sounds like something Dr. Phil would say. Thanagor, fuck off. He fucking does like right-leaning fucking bullshit. I swear to God, that man's a fucking propagandist. Jesus Christ. Because here's the thing. Personal responsibility is fine and all, but here's the reality. There are some things you can't personally responsibly your way out of. Right? This is the reality of the situation to me, people. And that is, I believe that we have to take responsibility for our lives. This is Zen 101. But we also have to, at some core level, acknowledge there are systems in power we can't do shit about. I would offer that every single person out there should recycle. I would say that every person out there should try to cut down on meat consumption if they can. Here's the thing. There's only so much you can do, and based on the data that we have, the people that are polluting the planet, creating fucking plastic island and destroying the fucking ozone and creating greenhouse effect and all this other bullshit, it's not us. It's the corporations. You can do what you can. Do what's within your arm's reach of being responsible, but your goodness isn't attached to that. Be honest with yourself of what you can do. If you can only do a little bit, do that little bit. But don't push yourself past that edge. It's fine to be working at your edge. That's a good place for growth, dealing with discomfort. But you don't necessarily have to live there or move past it. Correct, Thanagor. It is not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Do what you can, but also then look real sus at the fucking people that are doing the worst. It isn't the common citizenry like you and me. So here's the thing. I'll say it again. Your worth is never connected to your productivity level. If you're a disabled queer person who is fucking quadriplegic and can't move, and you basically live on machines, you're still worthwhile. You still deserve love. You still deserve care. You still deserve respect. I do not believe in this notion of societal parasites. I don't believe in this notion of people are only as good as the work they put out. Humans have survived and evolved based on our social groupings. Because we learned a long time ago that if we want to take down a woolly fucking mammoth, we need a group of people. So they have to agree on the rules, the ideas, the language. Our communities are one of our strongest ways of dealing with this. And part of those communities, as a way to be able to keep things strong, is you support those who have fallen. You don't vilify those who are beneath. But capitalism pushes for this because it wants productivity to be at the height. If you guys have ever seen Adam Ruins Everything, there's a video they talk about with the 8-hour workday and literally covers this notion. The 8-hour workday is nonsensical. No one should have to work this long. People start losing the ability to be productive. They start fucking around on Facebook. They start fucking playing with a Rubik's Cube, doing whatever at work. And the joke is, real simply, you could get the same amount of productivity way better for 4 hours. Zena, do you have thoughts?
I think this one's a particularly interesting and deep-seated one because, especially when we start taking into account more and more nuances about people's situations, I think this stuff becomes more apparent, right? If you are dealing with medical stuff, you can't do anything about that, but for some reason, other people, or other society, or other caregivers in your life may have set expectations that don't actually make sense for where you're at in that moment. Or you might have some that don't make sense for where you're at. Same thing if anybody is, neurodiverse. Your brain fundamentally works differently. You need different things to make things work inside your head, and different ways of learning, different ways of doing stuff. And so you do have to contend with the whole society that hasn't quite gotten the stuff. And no, taking in those expectations as, a failure to meet those expectations, which may be misguided in the first place, as part of your worth, can really fuck with you. It can really fuck with your sense of self. And we don't really have a society right now that is always able to, get people the help that would be really useful to them, or get them the services that they need, right? So again, the more nuance that we get here, the more this stuff falls apart.
Mm-hmm. Very truly. So I feel like we've covered this one, but if we leave you with anything today, I want to be very clear on this idea. Your worth is not connected to your productivity. In fact, it never has been. Just like all social construction, just like all meaning that's constructed by human beings, worth is a made-up thing. It does not exist in nature. There is no way in which a thing is worth anything. But we as human beings have come to the conclusion utterly to the conclusion that it is a good thing to make people feel worthwhile and make them feel like they are connected. As such, if we're going to engage with this construct of worth, you have yours. It is a priori. It is essential. It is inherent to who you are, not because that is the way the universe is, but because of the ways we socially understand humanity. Either everyone's worthwhile or no one is. Because if you can reduce a person's humanity to call them something as lowly as a parasite because they are disabled or because they can't work or because they're too busy staying home and taking care of their kids like my mom was, spoiler. That is a very slippery slope to some really fucking awesome stuff. Really awful stuff. So yeah, that's what I've got. Do you have anything else you want to add before we finish up?
No, I think that's
good.
Yeah, you've said it pretty well.
Cool. So if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell and all that good shit. So we have some really great comments in here, so feel free to pay attention to those. I couldn't get to everyone because we were kind of spieling. But I want you to leave this video with the notion that you are worthwhile regardless. It is a priori, it is inherent. Right? And so if you want to support the stream, please donate. You can go to streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. Both the chats have the link in them, so please feel free to donate. You can also become a patron at Patreon, patreon.com/transgirltherapist. I have a number of different tiers. We're about to create the 6th one. I would really appreciate anyone who does anything. You can join for as low as $3. So So with that, we'll leave that.
Any comments that you have, if you're watching this later, go ahead and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, lots of comments, please. Fuck's sakes. All right, everyone, thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.